So, good evening, Lila.
Hey, good evening. Good to see you, Chris.
Yeah, you too. I wanted to have a podcast with you because we're about to step into the last module of the training, which is all about dying consciously. And I've known you for years, and I wanted to bring you on board to talk about what it means to be dying consciously. But first of all, how did you get into this? And what is it exactly that you do?
Okay, well, I it kind of started when I was about 14, and the old lady down at the bottom of the road, Mrs. Burton, I was, helping her get up in the morning and wash and getting her meals and things like that. And then I was there when she was dying, and so I would sit with her through the night and to the point to her last breath.
Mm.
And yeah, and it kind of follows you, death. You can't, if you're called to it, you can't really get away. I definitely wanted to be doing something more glamorous, than that. And then I worked, nursing homes and things, and through my university, I, worked nursing homes and caring for people, and so that kind of went with me. I ended up doing shamanic training with you.
Yes, we did it together.
And so that gave me, I was, opened my eyes to the different realms, and how we can traverse them. And so it was the obvious connection of being able to traverse the realms and then be able to traverse with somebody else, um, to the point of death and even just past it, uh,
Mm,
and to be able to come back again and for
mm,
that person to then go on to whatever
mm.
it is after that. So I'm currently a funeral celebrant, and I have been for many years now, and what's called a soul midwife. So
Mm.
that's that person that stays is with somebody else as they're dying. In Ireland is known as anam, cara. um, it's known throughout history. To that point, the psychopomp, that's the one that kind of goes over the threshold with somebody as well.
Mhm.
So yes, it was my shamanic training really
They
that
kind of gave you the structure
gave me the
in which,
structure. I
yeah.
did do a course. I kind of like got halfway through before I got bored, on soul midwifery, but it was nothing that I hadn't learned
Mm,
already. And also, I've got a bit of a kind of axe to grind with what's happening just now in the world with funerals, which I
mm,
know that we'll talk about, but really, um, the the industry that, it's not that long ago that this was normal for us to
yes.
be without dying, to be with them as they die, to keep them in the house with us, up to 3 days,
Hmm.
depending, obviously it changes where you are in the world, what religion you are. There are all of those factors. If you're living in Saudi Arabia, you're not, you know, that's
Mm,
the whole reason of burying, so quickly.
mm.
So,
Yeah,
there's all of those factors, but we're not that far away from it, so we can all call this back in. This isn't just
yeah,
a few people who are doing it; we can all do it.
yeah. Because I can remember. So for example, for me, I really um I hadn't had the opportunity to sit with death until I went to Romania, when the grandfather of the place that we were working in, he died literally the morning we started our West training. And it was extraordinary, Lila, because I'd never seen this before. So his body was brought in. He was laid out on the dining room table in the house, and all the people of the village came. Everybody came. The women came to help in the kitchen because my thing was, oh, should we go? Should we leave? And they're like, no, no, no. It was almost like, for me, death was something that, I don't know, you put away. It was always put away into some other place. And here it was, right there in the center of the house, in the center of the village. Everybody came, and I got the real grace actually to sit with him. So I could, Simon and I went to, one evening, we were asked if we'd like to go and sit vigil with him. And so we sat either side of the coffin, and it was so beautiful, because we could say our thank yous. Thank you for allowing us to use your home and your land. Um, I don't know, it was something that I had never experienced before. So we, in our Western culture, we kind of, it's a taboo in a way for many of us. And I learned that for other cultures, it's not like that.
Mm.
So,
Yeah, well, it's interesting, you saying that you were there in that moment, being able to show your gratitude.
mm,
And, that is the crux of it. We live the best we can. And, that might look different for each person, but, you get to the end of your life and you have done the best you can. And really it's the gratitude for the life that you've lived, even if it's
mm,
that's been a difficult life. And certainly that's what I feel that we're is slipping away from us just
mm,
now, with many different factors that are going on. Certainly in countries where you have a stronger kind of family unity, or Catholic, you
mm,
you still there's still a strong sense of the church and the rituals and the rites. But in the kind of like Britain, and America and France, maybe, there's much more of a kind of move towards, I don't know, it's just like disposal,
oh,
actually. I mean, and
mhm,
I know that that sounds awful, and I will tell you why I say
mhm,
that word in that way. But I can remember reading a paper just recently on AI in
mm,
in the death industry. And again, it referred to saying that, in places like it was actually comparison with Portugal, and saying
mm,
that in Portugal there's still the rights and the honouring and things.
mhm,
And so the AI personality isn't being taken up, but this trend of an AI personality that can live beyond the grave. And so, we see
mm,
our friends who've still got Facebook pages, and it
mm,
pops up on their birthdays, and we wish that somebody would take it down. And
mm,
well, it's kind of gone further now. There's a television a program called, I think it was Upload. I didn't watch much of it, and at the time when I was watching, I thought, well, that's hopefully never going to happen, and it's already happening. You can have an
interesting.
avatar of the person who has died and
Mm,
continue a relationship with them. And
wow.
this, combined with other factors that are
Mm,
happening, is meaning that people aren't saying goodbye
yeah.
at the
Oh,
correct time. And
mm,
for me, I just feel as if it's, with everything else that's going on in the world, it's like an unfurling of humanity at
yeah.
that point where we should be giving gratitude for our humanness, and the reverence of goodbye, and thank you for your life, thank you for your life.
Mm,
Thank you for coming here and being
yeah.
part of the strangeness altogether. So yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, phew. I mean, to me, that's quite scary, because what I know about dying consciously is that that person's story has to be told. That it's like, without without that, they can't cross over. I really get that. It's like, let's celebrate the life, the journey that person was on, the life that they lived, the people whose lives they touched, all of those kind of things. So important. That And then the grieving that takes place. I mean, if what you're saying with this AI business and avatars that go on and on, if that's where's first of all, where's the celebration of the going of that person, the leaving of that person, and where's the where's the grieving?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, this became an issue for me. It was pre-lockdown, so maybe 7 or 8 years ago, and I was working in the funeral industry, and I went up to Birmingham. Is it the NEC? So it's like and I didn't even know such things were that you have this big exhibition,
Convention, yeah.
yeah, for the funeral industry.
Mm,
And I hadn't realized how monetized the whole thing
mm,
was.
mm,
So maybe I was slightly naive. Anyway, it was a bit of a shocker for me. And I had a seminal encounter which really changed how I did things and where I am just now. And so I was a celebrant, and even though in my training to be a celebrant, I knew the importance of, you can celebrate the life, you lift the life up, but
mm,
it's so important that when you come to the point of this person has died, let
mm,
us all acknowledge that this person has died. Let us take our energy down to touch our grief.
mm,
You've turned up here, you might not be with the family, you be in the family, you might have just come from your mundane life, but here in this place you can touch your grief.
mm,
And the sheer importance of that I didn't realize until I was at this exhibition, and I happened to be talking to a lay preacher,
mm,
and he said to me that with the rise of celebrants
mm,
over priests, or even humane celebrants,
mhm,
there was just like slightly off kilter. It was all about celebrate, what,
mhm,
not this point of committal. And
mm,
he said that they had seen in the church a correlation between the rise of the celebrant and the rise of people coming back to the church for All Souls, because they
mm,
had missed the point of
mm,
saying goodbye to their loved one. And that
mm.
point, I think, is crucial in our humanity
Yeah,
to acknowledge.
absolutely.
And if we don't touch it at that moment,
Mm,
we've kind of, when we're raw, when we're open, when it's there. And when lockdown came, it went from, funerals of, whatever, and all
mm,
of a sudden you were only allowed 8 people there. And
yeah.
so we had then all of a sudden we're having Zoom becomes a thing so that other
Mm,
people can be there. And and so people are saying, okay, we're going to do this, and then we will, after lockdown, we'll have a celebration, a memorial. And then people started going, well, we're not even going to have the funeral for the 8 people. We're going to go directly to cremation, and we will have the memorial later. I came out of the industry for a bit, and then a few years later, I saw the main person I worked with, a funeral director, and I said, did that happen? Did all of those memorials happen? He said, no, they didn't happen. And
no.
that was the point I realized. And I thought of that lay preacher, and I'm like, okay,
Mm,
we're missing the point here.
yeah.
And yeah,
So it's the point really being that without the grief, you can't let go.
you can't
Actually,
let go. You're wounded. You've got an unmet thing inside you, and
mhm.
God knows we've got enough unmet things inside of us.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
it's that's why we do it, and that's why we do it then, not
Yes,
as a memorial 6 months
yes.
later.
No, because like you say, it won't happen.
Mm. Well, it won't happen, but also you've moved from that point.
Mm,
I can remember reading about Viktor Frankl when he came out of the concentration camps, and he wrote Man's Search for Meaning, and it's
mm,
very raw, but somebody said to him, write it now, as soon as you come out, before life
yeah,
gives you the buffer that you need to continue
yeah,
with
exactly.
life.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it's the same thing. It's
Yeah.
we touch that place of honoring and grief at that point, because life has to continue, and we
Mm,
can't stay in that space.
No.
And yet, so we move forward now, and so many of us have just got a wound inside of us.
Mm. And actually, in a way, it kind of reminds me of when my father died. I just had Tom, so Tom was 3 weeks old, and I could not face his death. I mean, my father was like my hero, he was everything to me. But there I was, I had this 3 week old baby, and I had to deal with that. So I did not, I didn't let myself grieve. I didn't even go to see him in the um, chapel of rest. I couldn't do it. But what happened for me was I nearly had a breakdown months and months later because I hadn't dealt with this well of grief inside of me that I just plastered it over, you know? So I don't, did I even go to his funeral? Yes, I did go to his funeral, but it was as if I couldn't I just could not deal with the grief. I used to think that I saw him everywhere. You know, I'd see somebody and think, oh, and then it's like, no, it's not. So it's almost like my psyche could not deal with not having dealt with the grief and the sadness and the trauma of that for me in the moment. But it created a trauma later on. So
Mm.
that's
Yeah,
how it
I
is.
think we are running into a bit of a problem.
Mm,
It's so as a funeral celebrant, just very recently, my mother-in-law has died, and I was able to be with her in that last 4 days and nights to her final breath,
mhm,
and then to do her funeral, and she asked me to do her funeral, and so here I was taking the funeral of and it's personal this time.
mm,
I've some funerals can be very difficult depending on the circumstances of it, but this was this is my husband's mother, and also I just come out of this very um I mean it's such a special place to be with the transition at
mm,
death, and so I was still within that energy, and I just spoke from my heart. But it was interesting because I said, I was speaking about her. I was including everybody that was there. She got a really good turnout for 89, and I know. And whereas before I would, it wouldn't be so much to me. I knew that you had to touch the point where you could touch the grief. But in this one, I wasn't letting anybody go until they cried. And I've never done that before, but for
yeah,
her, that's what
yeah,
she deserved. She
yeah.
deserved everybody to touch that place.
Yeah, because the thing is, it's all about love, right?
Yeah,
It's all about love. And that's the point. I think that if you're not grieving, how much love are you expressing then?
yeah,
I
yeah.
think that's it. I mean, my daughter-in-law at the moment is going through that very same process with her mother. So day after day, sitting with her and waiting for the moment, because she's transitioning, she's going in and out, she's transitioning, but she wants to be there with her,
Mm, mm.
so it's a very special moment.
It is.
Tough,
It's
but
special,
special.
and but it's like you said, it's kind of like pushed away, and it has been
Mm,
for a long time, in medicine, in the hospitals. When
mm.
somebody dies, it's seen as a failure.
I
It's a
know,
failure of the
yeah.
surgeon's training, and
Mhm.
everybody's on them and everybody's doing everything, crash carts and everything's going out, and then they flatline, and it's just like gone, gone,
Yeah.
nothing, and it's yeah, and and I suppose on one level I'm like, that person's still there, they can see and hear you,
Yeah.
but and that kind of takes me to where I'm feeling a bit of a calling just now. Never had one before. I'm feeling a bit of a calling just now, just about this whole thing of how we mourn, how we
mm,
grieve. You know, we've
mm.
got it. We've just, as I said, it's not that far away. I don't think it would take us that much to get back to it. But, you know, compared to, you know, even the Irish, who they hire keeners, don't they? So, you know,
Yeah,
if you can't if you can't touch it yourself, or then there's somebody there to do it, so
yeah.
that one, that it's done for you, but also that it can tap into that. And you know, and
Mm,
here we are, not crying, not keening, not,
mm,
you know, not even being there,
mm,
really. But I have become aware, which I wasn't, because I've been out of the industry for a couple of years, um, about this whole direct cremation.
mm,
And it's, you know, it's really in daytime television. You know, between your program, twice within the adverts, you will get a whole, you know, have a direct cremation. It'll be easier for your family. You can sort it all out. We'll pick you up from wherever you are, the hospital, morgue, the nursing home, and we'll look after you. And then when your family are recovered and are feeling better, then they can have a celebration of your life. And so, you know, as an extension of what I was saying just at the beginning, and missing this point, you know, my mother's booked up. Most of her friends are booked up on this, because
on a direct cremation
on a direct
without
cremation,
without
and
anything else. Mm,
without anything else, but with this whole thing of, you know, make it easier for your children. And I know that there's a cultural change going
mm,
on, but it's, you know, that's not what these guys are thinking about. You know,
mm,
they're not doing that. It's also apparently not even known whether people are left thinking that whatever they pay will pay for some kind of, you know, memorial service as well. It's kind of, but it is playing to that part of, oh, you know, don't worry the children, don't worry the children.
mm,
And you know, and then we see, you know, I have heard on the grapevine that, you know, that there is a backlog of in hospital morgues, um, hospitals having being clogged, basically, because these people aren't being picked up within a certain amount of time. So
so that I mean, normally what would happen, a person would die, they would be taken to a funeral director. The funeral director would deal with all the, you know, the coffin and the embalming and all that kind of thing, and then there would be a funeral.
yes, so the if you died in the hospital, you would be in the hospital morgue, depending where you die,
Mm,
and then at the point where, depending on many factors, your body could be released, if there was an
mm,
autopsy needed or whatever, it would then go to the care of a funeral director. Now, um, certainly the funeral directors that I choose to work for do body work. They lay out, they do vigil, they do all of
mm,
those things. But I've got to remember that I live in Totnes, and
yeah,
you know,
it's
can be,
different. Mm,
so there's a lot of honouring that goes on
mm,
for that. But you know, even within good um, kind of like, you know, the traditional ones, even though they're good, they care, you know, there's not so much the care of the body and the laying out, and all
mm,
of those things, all of the things that we've always done. uh,
mm,
so, and then, you know, with the family, you go into discussion about the coffin and the funeral and the music, and for me, the importance of that part, that week,
mm,
or 10 days, well, actually it's kind of about 3 weeks now, seems to be,
mm,
if you're having a funeral in that period.
mm,
And for me as a celebrant, which was why I was never going to be rich with it,
mm,
is about the time that you spend with the family, and recalling to them
mm,
the stories of this person that has died.
mm,
And so it's a bit like the Peter Levine work, where people are kind of like stuck, they're stuck. And it's
mm,
like, how much can you get movement before the funeral
mm,
will have a direct correlation on how they grieve after the funeral.
Mm.
And so that was pretty much what I saw as my job, then quite apart from standing up and delivering the funeral and being
Mm-hmm.
the reverend. And so, yes, it was a whole orchestration, which was completely to help them grieve and
Yeah,
to accept their loss and to remember the people and to move out of the frozen state.
yeah, exactly.
And
Because
so,
I can,
and
yeah, I
that's
can.
going back to what you said,
Mm-hmm.
what's happened at that point now.
Mm.
We've got all of these frozen people who never
Mm.
quite get through it, who never touch
Mm.
that place. If we go back to this, everybody going
Yeah,
back to church for All Souls.
yeah. And I find that really, as a shamanic practitioner, let's say, um, I find it really sad because what what the whole point of us humans is that we feel stuff. We're feeling beings, and the scary thing for me is that when we don't allow ourselves to feel, when we lose that empathic connection with ourselves, then who do we become? You
Yeah.
know?
The unfurling of humanity. This is
Mm,
this is kind of what I'm seeing it happening at the end of life, and it's almost like,
mm,
at my very core, I'm kind of Advaita. I'm like Brahman. It's still, and that's the place that
mhm,
I go to find my rest.
mhm,
And then you take a step back from that and you're in the world of all of
mhm,
the energies and all of the relationships,
mhm,
and so I'm pleased that I can go to a place where I can have rest, because when you're in this reality, it's like full responsibility, even the
mm,
point of, um, you know, as a thought is forming, you are responsible for that and the energy that you're putting out into the world, because we are
mm,
here for interpersonal relationships. And if we lose the ability to feel the ache of losing love,
mm.
then I don't know where we go from there.
No.
It scares me, actually. It scares me.
Mm.
And
Yeah, I feel that too because that's, like you say, it's the point of our humanity. That's who we are. We're feeling beings. And yeah, I remember going to an exhibition in London of, I think it was Picasso's work. Um, and at the end of the exhibition, they did this video that they said this video has taken all his work and AI has made it into a film. And I started to feel sick as I watched this because because Picasso's work is weird anyway. It's not it it's very abstract and there's a lot of odd things. But when AI took it, all the soul went out of it, and all you were left with was the something, but it was soulless, and I felt sick. And I thought, if this is what this AI is doing, removing our humanity, our soul, the soul that we put into our life, if all it is about just a physical body and that's it, that it comes, it goes, a body is born and then it dies and then it's destroyed. What are we left with? And oh my
what's the point?
goodness, yeah, exactly.
Mm.
Exactly. What is the point and what are we left with? And that is very scary, I think.
I think that's where we come back to, maybe stay for the first time, choice. It is that,
Mm,
how we choose, the choice that we make, which wolf do we feed, which
mhm,
do we choose to love? And if we
mm,
choose to love, then that hurts, and it
mm.
hurts when somebody you love dies.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
so
Exactly. But we
and I
can't
and I
avoid
choose
it.
no, I choose to be a feeling being, because
Mm,
it's otherwise you're just kind of going through life in some almost zombie. stage. I mean, that sounds a bit harsh. I'm sure there's many people out there who, are living their lives and maybe they didn't grieve their mum or their dad or whatever. I'm not casting shade. I'm
Mm-mm.
just saying that I'm worried with this increasing trend that we are, with if you've got AI coming in one way and all of the madness that's going in the world, the sanctity of death. Um,
Mm,
it does feel to me like if that bit unfurls, then we
mm.
don't have a great deal to help us combat the other stuff as
Yeah,
well.
exactly. Yeah, and you just touched on that word, sanctity of death, the sacredness of that part of our human journey. And our job, your job, is to make that sacred. When we do our Dying Consciously um, program, it's all about the rituals, the ceremony, making it sacred, and a beautiful, beautiful journey from this life to the next. And it is a journey. It's not like done.
Mm.
And so not only do the people who are left behind get miss something really valuable, but I wonder if the people that are going over into that other realm also feel the loss of that connection.
It's definitely a hard one to know, but it's a sticky space, the
Mm,
kind of immediate astral. Um,
mm,
it is, I know. So when I was with my mother-in-law just recently, I mean, yeah, and then you've got kind of like medicated deaths. I know
mm,
that Bush has kind of like said, he wishes he knew more through all of the times when he was a doctor about,
yeah.
medicated deaths. But again, if somebody's in pain, they're in pain. You want to get them out of pain. Maybe in the future we'll get to a point where we can maybe be using herbs and things that
Mm,
can touch the pain and allow that person to still be fully conscious at the point
mm.
that they go over. Um, so, yeah, sorry, I just went off on a tangent there. What was your question?
About the sacredness of that moment when they move, when they go over, whether the person themselves misses the the beauty and the sacredness of being guided over,
Yeah,
rather than it just be, that's it, all done, cut off.
done and dusted, done and dusted.
Mm-hmm.
It is hard to know. What I do know is that, so this is where we're going back to mother-in-law, and when she just went. I
Mm-hmm.
opened the window to let her soul out, and Magpie was flew away, which was for sure her sister, who had died just like a month before her. And she was gone. She was gone. And by the time I'd done the rites and I laid her out, and she was there for 24 hours before we called um, the directors, and she was gone. So she was, because it's when somebody dies, their essence is still there. They're still there. Whichever religion you look in, you can find
Mm-hmm.
that is so. So I don't know that, maybe that accounts for people, just not going over properly.
Mm-hmm.
And then that whole opens up a whole other casket of things. And, I just certainly know from my kind of like shamanic training that, well,
Yeah.
well, anyway, you're kind of like trying to move people on the whole time from the astral, because they're kind of stuck there.
Mm-hmm.
What the correlation is, I don't really know, but I know from
No.
me that I would hope that I had somebody who knew what to do, or at least cared, at least,
Yeah. Yeah.
not
Exactly.
somebody picking me up and, putting me in a cardboard box and, and then hopefully sending the right ashes to my family.
Mm.
So,
And that is worrying as well, isn't it?
well, it's worrying, and of course it may be an expose that
mm,
is on the cards
mm,
to do with all of this. All I know is that there's backlog in the hospitals, but
yes.
it's an industry that's grown so quickly. I wonder what their fail safes are to make sure that
Mm,
it really is Auntie Betty in that
mhm.
box. So
Yeah.
again, and we don't really know, kind of like going over, and but it's just messy. It's
Mm,
messy, and end of life can be messy enough.
yeah.
um, but we at least we have our rituals to keep us steady somehow.
Yeah. And I think our job, really, your job anyway, but I also think my job when I'm working with somebody who's going over is to make sure that it's dignified, it's sacred, it's dignified, it's beautiful, and it's kind of like the last aspect of this life. And of course, we don't know what's on the other side of that until we go.
Mm,
But my wish would be that in because most of us are, I have to say, most of us are afraid of the unknown. We don't, when it comes to that moment of letting go of everything and everything and everything, then so we don't know where we're going. Our limbic brain kicks in. There's a lot of fear, a lot of resistance, a lot of holding on. Sort of the brain wants to survive, the body needs to survive. So all of that kicks in. And if we can make it as sweet and beautiful and ritual and ceremony does that, it kind of calms everything down.
yeah.
And so it's like making that transition as ease and graceful as possible so that everybody involved, the family and the person themselves, feels safe and held.
Mm.
Isn't that you know, what's important really about your work? Also our work as well.
Well, I think it is that, I guess that many people who are going to watch this podcast are within this work. We
Mm,
are gatekeepers, we are
mm.
transition people. That was very eloquent. Yeah, and sometimes, 50-50, death can be not graceful and not,
Mm,
and that, but when all else fails, when you can't do the beautiful, you can't, and and it's a shocking moment,
mm,
maybe. All you need to do is open your heart, and
mm,
even if that person is in that place and they're going, you just open your heart and you go, I see you,
mm,
thank you. That's
mm,
it. That's it.
mm.
That's all you need to do. If you can do nothing else,
Mm.
just let them know that
Yeah,
you're there. They're not
yeah,
alone.
they're not alone. Yeah, well, it's beautiful. That's a great way to end, actually, Lilah.
Yeah. It's been so lovely to talk to you, Chris.
Yeah, it's been wonderful to share this conversation as well because I know, how important your work is, my work, and the students that are about to step into the East. They're gonna be learning all these tools, not to be an anam cara in the way that you are or a celebrant, but to actually midwife people across. I think is a great gift. It's a great gift,
I can
and
remember doing my East class. It was definitely an eye opener. It's like, because
yeah,
you really, I mean, the whole medicine wheel is about the sacred, and then you touch the sacred.
yeah,
You,
exactly. That
in the
moment of,
Yeah,
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 exactly.
yeah. Well, if that's who's seeing me, then yeah.
Yeah,
I
nice.
I wish you well in the East.
Thank you. Yeah, wonderful. Thank you, Lilah. I'm just gonna press stop.